Oh boy, I am not wanting to do this episode. This is going to be the worst episode, and I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this. I can feel it. I'm going to get nasty comments and hate mail, and it's going to be bad. All right, this is episode 2, what to do before you're married. Yeah, what? What to do before you're married? What does before marriage have to do with divorce? Fasten your seatbelts because this is going to be just crazy. What you do before you're married greatly defines what happens in the courtroom when you're getting divorced. Let that sink in. The actions or inactions you take before you're married define how your divorce is going to go. I didn't believe it either until it actually happened to me. So the first thing you want to do is start an LLC or a limited liability company. And I know your brain's just sitting there going, what is this guy even talking about? So this is what celebrities and rock stars and billionaires, if you have any real assets, this is what you need to do because you transfer those assets into the LLC. Preferably you'd want to start the LLC with someone you trust, like a family member or a best friend, someone who's not going to take your money and run. And have it be a legitimate business, not just something you dump crap into. You're going to need to transfer the things in there. And then when I talk things, we're talking houses, boats, cars, anything you want to keep legally separated from your life so that someone else cannot come and sue you and take it. And you do that by getting a lawyer. Now, you're going to be asking, well, what do I transfer and how do I transfer it? That's up for you to decide. I am not a legal or financial expert. This is not advice in any way, shape, or form. And you bear the sole responsibility for what you do. I have to put that out there for legal reasons. So you need to get a lawyer. That's number 2. Now, whether or not you even go down the LLC route, because I realize if you work at like a gas station or something, this is a bit extreme, but the lawyer will help you move your assets into the LLC. The lawyer will even file the LLC paperwork for you. It's ridiculously simple. It's ridiculously cheap too. But the point is, if you get divorced, and you own an LLC, they cannot go after that LLC if it was formed before the marriage. That's not entirely true. There are some states where they can do that, and that's why you form it with someone you trust, because then they can't go after it, because they would have to sue that other individual as well, who has nothing to do with your marriage. All right, so number 2 is get a lawyer. Regardless of whether or not you do an LLC, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer. The reason why you want a lawyer is because you want someone who understands the laws way better than you ever will. And a lawyer is in the courtroom dealing with these laws every single day. When I was getting married, I had a benefit of knowing a lawyer, someone I went to school with, and I'm actually good friends with them. And I sat them down and said, what do I need to know before I get married? And they told me what I'm about to tell you, which is get a prenuptial agreement. I want that to sink in. Get a prenuptial agreement. You want a prenuptial agreement. It's literally a legal document that defines, in the event of your divorce or separation, who gets what. It defines what you own, what they own, what your debts are, and what their debts are. That way you're not stuck paying for somebody's student loan, or they don't go after and take your house, your car, or whatever you own. Now, unfortunately, that is going to cost you some money. It's, depending on the lawyer and the state, it's going to cost upwards of $2,000 to $5,000. But that $2,000 to $5,000 could save you your entire life savings. Again, I know there's people out there going, buddy, I work at Walmart. I don't make that much money. You can do this online. And I want to caution you from doing it online. There are services out there where for, I think, like 10 minutes and $25, you can make a prenuptial agreement. The problem with that is accountability. Your spouse, in the event of a divorce, can turn around and say, I didn't understand what I was signing. This is especially true if English is not their primary language. They can turn around in court and say, I didn't know what I was signing. I speak, Spanish or French or Russian, whatever. And the judge is going to take that prenup, wad it up, and throw it in the trash, because guess what? You can't be held accountable for something you didn't understand. That's not actually true in most laws, but in divorce court, it actually is true. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you get a lawyer, you get a prenup, the lawyer is going to ask, is English your primary language? And if the lawyer doesn't ask that, get up, walk out of the room, get a new lawyer. Because when the lawyer asks that and your spouse answers no, I speak Spanish, French, whatever, the lawyer is going to make a copy of that prenup in their native language and have them sign that and attach it to the English version and have you both sign it. That way there's no question that language was a barrier. And the judge is going to have to go, yep, you signed it and you agreed in your native language you signed it, so it's going to be enforced. Now, unfortunately, with a prenuptial agreement, there are some things that are not enforceable, such as child support. You cannot enforce anything that is an actual law inside of a prenuptial agreement. You can't say, like, I refuse to ever pay child support. Can't do that. You have to pay your child support per your state guidelines and your state laws. It's just the law. You can't break a law in a legal document. Now, prenuptial agreements get a lot of bad heat, and it's because people think, well, they only last so long or they can be invalidated. It's actually not true. Prenuptial agreements actually do not expire. They don't, unless there's an expiration clause in them. You have to remember a prenuptial agreement is a legal document, and that legal document actually supersedes many other legal documents. So I have to be careful what I say here because I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice, but a prenuptial agreement that you have both signed would supersede anything you two have verbally said. You know, if you said, oh baby, I'll give you the house, but the prenup says that you keep the house, guess what? You're going to keep your house unless it's been invalidated somehow. Invalidating a prenuptial agreement is actually very difficult. Most really good prenuptial agreements will have a clause in them. It'll say, like right here in the fine print, it will say something to the effect of, if one item in this document can be invalidated or nullified, the rest of the document remains. A lot of times what a good lawyer is going to do in divorce court is they're going to get this prenup and they're going to go, oh yeah, it says right here on page 5, paragraph 6, blah, 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 there's a comma missing or the period's out of place. So this whole document's just trash and they ask the judge to throw it out. If you have that clause in there that says if one part is invalid, the rest of the document cannot be invalidated, guess what? You just saved yourself a ton of money. So make sure those things are in your prenup. The other thing you need to understand is that commingling your assets is a big no-no. And we're going to talk about that during the marriage. I'm going to make a whole video on that. But just be conscious of that before you even get married. That if you have a joint account, that joint account is going to get split in accordance with the laws of your state. And sometimes that's not fair. I got to look at my notes. The next thing is to decide where to get married. And this may sound weird. You have to understand that just because you live in, say, Florida, doesn't mean you have to get married in Florida. You can actually go to another state, reside there for a while, and get married there, where the laws are better. I pick on Florida because at the time of this recording, Florida actually has a clause in their laws. Clause in their laws, that rhymed. They have a law that says if you're married for a certain amount of time, you now owe your spouse alimony for the rest of their life. That's right, lifelong alimony. Think about that. Really let that sink in. You're married to somebody, you're married for so many years, and then suddenly you owe them money the rest of your life. While they're out having fun, doing whatever they want to do, you're paying them. You got to be careful. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm here in Michigan. The laws in Michigan are weird. Michigan's got some weird laws. Michigan used to be what was called a common law state, which meant that if you were with your significant other for so many years, you were now married. No cake, no ceremony, just ta-da, you're married. And it really screwed a lot of people over. So the laws actually changed. And I got to refer to my notes. I hate talking about legal stuff. It's so, Anyways, so the law actually changed. Common law was abolished in 1957 in Michigan. 1957. Think about that. It was almost the 1960s before that law was gotten rid of. Now you need a marriage license and a marriage certificate. So you have to go off, you get a license, and then you have so many days to go get married. I know I'm using Michigan as an example, but it's pretty much universal everywhere. This is kind of how things work. Again, this is why you get a lawyer, so you understand all the steps and the laws. And once you get married, at the end of that, you now sign the certificate and you have to mail it in, and you are now legally married. If you miss any of those steps, notice there's 3 steps, you miss any of those, you're actually not legally married. I wonder how many people in Michigan are not actually legally married because they forgot to mail that thing in. This is where I'm going to get a lot of hate mail. If you are with someone and they do not want to go for a prenuptial agreement, like they're giving you heartburn over it, they think it's a dumb idea, they're calling you stupid, they're saying things like, well, do you think we're not going to work out? Do you think we're going to get a divorce? Do you not love me? If they're guilt tripping you like that, do not marry that individual. 100%, I'm going to tell you that is a bad idea. There is a reason why they don't want you to sign that. I got guilt tripped in mine, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but yeah, I felt like a dirtbag for even mentioning a prenuptial agreement. And I found out later on that it would have been the best thing for me. And remember, I even talked to a lawyer before this whole process who was screaming at me, go get a prenuptial agreement. So that's the major underlying theme of this whole video is you want a lawyer, you want a prenuptial agreement. If you can, go get an LLC. I'm going to say it again, if your spouse does not want a prenuptial agreement, you have to ask yourself why. And it's because they ultimately want the option to screw you over later in court. Get a prenuptial agreement. I'm just going to leave it at that. And in closing, look, don't get intimidated by this. I know it sucks being in love and sitting down with someone and saying, hey, look, we need to think this through, but if it's going to be something that's going to be the rest of your life, then you'll never need the prenup. You'll just be married the rest of your life. But statistically, you're going to need it. 50% of all first-time marriages fail, and it goes up 10% for each marriage after that. So 50%, 60%, 70%, if it's their third marriage, you've got a 70% chance of getting a divorce. You're going to 70% of the time need that prenuptial agreement in that situation. So I wish you all luck, peace, and happiness, and I hope you find the one you love. And trust me, from the bottom of my heart, I hope everything works out for you. But in the event that it doesn't, get a lawyer, get a prenuptial agreement, get an LLC, transfer your assets to it, and protect yourself. Stay safe out there.